let's bring it back up. Joe Malloy, good morning to you. How you doing?
It's going off a cliff now.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed after staying up late. Brooks Koepka wins again, but he's not the lead story. It has to be the fact that Tiger Woods is actually legitimately back.
I know, it's unbelievable. Brooks Koepka, by the way, has a massive chip on his shoulder about this, and we can come to that. But Tiger Woods is now 26th in the world. He was... it was just phenomenal. Did you guys watch this as a matter of interest?
Yeah. I was like not watching it, kept seeing the stuff on my phone. I was like, okay, I finally relented. And then I got on board just as the drive goes wayward on 17. It's like, oh shit, I should have stopped watching it.
Well, what you missed was Woods didn't hit a fairway until the 10th. So, he was just disastrous off the tee. But somehow he was 3 under through 9. He made 4 birdies on the front 9. And then he had this stretch from 12 to 15, which is the greatest stretch of golf of the year by some distance, where he went birdie, then had a bogey on 14, and then on 15 from 164 yards, hit a 9-iron to within 2 feet to go within one of the lead. And honestly, the place just blew up. It was like a Ryder Cup on steroids. It was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, the crowd were just going insane. Woods shot a 64 yesterday, which is the lowest he's ever shot, ever. I mean, you would think somewhere along the line he might have managed a 64 on a Sunday before. He's never managed a 64 on a Sunday at a major. It was just, I knew we'd see him back to a point, but I never thought that he'd be playing like this on a Sunday. And I don't know where you start with it. It was just so dramatic and so unbelievable. And it was all there on 11 Sports for everyone to see.
I may have tuned over to CBS Sports via a different website at some stage in the night, but I think the moment when we realised Tiger was back was on 17, when he gets really angry and he swings his club in fresh air. And you know that phrase, the Incredible Hulk, you won't like me when I'm angry. Like with Tiger Woods, you love it when he's angry because you know he's tuned in, you know he's dialed in, and we haven't seen that anger and that passion in a long time.
Yeah, 17's the killer. I mean, what you'd give for him to go back and just take a 3-wood. I know it's very hard. And like that par 5 17th has been a real risk and reward hole. And he was right in the mix. And he took driver. And you just knew, all day, he even admitted afterwards in his warm-up he couldn't hit the driver straight. Usually he's a really, really good driving range player. And when he's at Portrush next year, and we all go up and watch him at the driving range, and you watch him hit drive after drive, you'll say, what's the issue with his driving? Everything's perfect. So, and usually he's perfect on the driving range. But he said even yesterday, he was left on the driving range. He was right on the driving range. He honestly said he went out there and just decided which side he was going to miss on. Like, it was just that kind of chronic for him. And on 17, look, he probably had to take driver under the circumstances, but you were just worried, and he flirted with the hazard, and yeah, the temper flared up. That said, he's still kind of nice, Tiger. I mean, he's not gone into full Hulk mode yet because he's there waiting for Brooks Koepka on 18 to give him a high five and a hug. And he's all smiles. And if you were watching from 17, you would have seen the reception he got on 18 as he left. I mean, it was just like the place couldn't believe what it was seeing, because really for probably a generation now, most of those golf fans haven't seen Tiger like this. Even Brooks Koepka said afterwards his 2 favourite players growing up were Tiger Woods and Adam Scott. And he was playing with Adam Scott. And he said with Woods, it was funny because they were, Woods was obviously a couple of holes ahead. But what happens is there's the initial cheer from when Woods makes, 8 birdies. That's a lot of cheering. So Woods makes 8 birdies. There's the initial cheer from the hole he's on. And then it trickles back as each scoreboard changes as it gets back to you. So I just had a cursory look at all the golf websites there. And, the Golf Channel, for instance, it's a picture of Koepka, but it's like a massive picture of Tiger next to him. And it's about, the Tiger roars couldn't stop Brooks. It's all about Tiger. Like, the only quote from Brooks on the right-hand side list of quotes is, Brooks, we could hear Tiger roars. I mean, the man's just won 3 majors out of the last 6 he's played. And yet there's only one story, because he couldn't move last year. Woods literally couldn't move. It was over. He said last year at the President's Cup, I'm probably done. I've had a great run. Everything else is gravy. He was ranked 1,200 and something. In short, he's gone up 1,773 places in the space of a year. You just couldn't see any of this coming.
People talk about that Tiger effect, and I'm never quite sure how real it is, because I've never been at a tournament to see Tiger in the flesh. Talk about what you're talking about there, and then subsequently what impact that has on the golfers themselves. And Justin Thomas, speaking on CBS after, was like, yeah, that was my first experience of the Tiger effect, and it is real. It does have a psychological impact on those players, and it almost makes Brooks Koepka's achievement all the better.
Yeah, Koepka's scary. honestly, I think Koepka now increasingly. So he's in the last 6 majors he's played, he's won 3. Koepka's an interesting character. Like, he's far too cool for golf. You know, he just you've seen him, I'm sure. He's just absolutely ripped. He's an athlete. He's a big chip on his shoulder, kind of laconic guy, doesn't say very much. Has sort of felt a little bit overlooked throughout his career, you know. So, like, only started playing golf because he was in a car crash and hurt his face. I think he fractured his sinus, or, you know, got his face banged up in a car crash, and was told you can't play contact sports for a while. So just took up golf. And his dad was a decent player in his local club. Brooks ended his dad's 5-year winning stretch at the local golf club when he was 13. He became the champion there. So he was good from early on. But he was overlooked by Florida, which was the university he wanted to go to. He was then overlooked for the US Walker Cup team, the amateur version of the Ryder Cup, was peeved about that, and almost kind of just said, well, sod everything, and took off to Europe and played on the Challenge Tour and the European Tour in 2012. He's 28 years old now. And I remember being at an Irish Open 2012, 2013 territory, and just chatting to one of the officials there, who was, you know, one of the media guys. And he said, do you ever watch Challenge Tour? And I said, no, God, no. I'm not that bad. And he said, Brooks Koepka. And the name sort of is memorable. So I remember him saying, he said, Brooks Koepka is unbelievable. And I was like, what are you saying? And he goes, well, he's going to win on the European Tour next year. And then I think he's going to win majors. And you're kind of saying, okay, you know, you've heard this before, you'll keep an eye out for it. But, like, as good as his word. And even at Shinnecock back in June at the US Open, he was obviously defending champion, and, you know, he was a bit miffed that he was watching the Golf Channel after the first round and wasn't even up. He didn't have a great first round, but wasn't even up at, like, the bottom. They do notable others, you know, and the scores are often there. Wasn't even there, and he's defending champion. Had an opening round of 69 this week. Nobody wanted to interview him. Like, there is this kind of sense that he feels, I can't be ignored now, and he's not playing up to the galleries. He doesn't play up to the media. He's like, well, I've won 3 and 6, and, you know, you just can't ignore me. So, like, I just think I think he could be the late bolter of, if we put McIlroy as the elder statesman of the post-Tiger generation, and so you have the likes of Spieth, who has 3 majors as well. Like, think how much we talk about Spieth.
Yeah.
Level with Spieth. Dustin Johnson still only has 1, like the greatest underachiever of the 21st century in golf. Justin Rose only has 1. Jason Day only has 1. This guy's come in with 3. He's completely unruffled. He doesn't give a shit. Like, he just doesn't give a shit about anything. He doesn't care about the media. He doesn't care about, I mean, he doesn't hate the fans. He's, like, happy to have them, but doesn't care about Tiger. He's just relentless.
Didn't care about missed putts either.
No. Like, he's so mentally strong. And this blew me away at Shinnecock when he won the US Open. He went out in the second last round with Dustin Johnson. Johnson crumbled. I mean, really crumbled. Shinnecock was this horrible, you know, there were lots of steep runoffs of the greens. So you were chipping up onto greens, really tricky kind of a pressure course when you're trying to salvage par on a Sunday. Koepka just made par after par when you need to, and hit lots of brilliant shots. Unruffled. Johnson went to pieces. And again, yesterday we saw it. Like, you know, Justin Thomas talking about the Tiger effect. Koepka bogeyed 4 and 5. So he comes out, he's a nice start, he birdies the first, but he bogeys 4 and 5. And that's where anyone who's a little bit normal goes, oh my God, it's a Sunday. Look, I've already won a US Open this year. You know, it's okay. He comes back and he birdies 7, 8, and 9. He doesn't care what happens. And it's not like a Dustin Johnson thing where people say, oh, he's too, you know, he's so stupid, he's forgotten the shot he's hit 4 holes ago. Like Johnson's not that thick, and actually the pressure does get him. Koepka just doesn't seem to care. Like, he's like walking kind of machismo. He's the swagger, and is just like unruffled, and he gets up and he muscles the club, you know. Some lads are rhythm and swing and timing. Like, he brings it back shut, and he just holds on to it, and he gets the muscles and just turns violently and just rips through the ball and hits it a million miles, you know. Like, but sorry, the last point on that, it's a short game. As I said, the chip shots around Shinnecock to win his second US Open, the par saves here, although he just missed a lot of birdie putts more so than anything yesterday. But, like, with a wedge around the green under pressure, he's like a finesse player as well, and he's a great putter. So, look, 3 majors in 18 months, 3 in his last 6 played. He damaged his wrist very badly this year. That's why he wasn't at the Masters. And he said, I don't want to use the word depressed, but he said, I got incredibly down. I was sitting on my couch. He said, I put on 15 pounds. I felt terrible. I was watching the Masters, and I said, if my wrist gets sorted out, because it was touch and go, potentially career threatening, he said, if I get my wrist sorted out, I am just going to be the most disciplined, driven guy you can imagine. And he's come out and won 2 majors. Claude Harmon's his teacher. He worked a bit with Butch as well. Like he could be. I mean, Rory's now looking over his shoulder as the guy under 30. You know, this guy is serious.
Well, let's talk a bit about Shane Lowry before we wrap up here. A difficult end, bogeys on 16 and 17, and a back and forth with the rules official. What happened?
Well, you'll have to ask someone in 11 Sports or the US. Like we didn't see much of Lowry. Is the unfortunate truth. Based on what he's saying afterwards, he wanted relief from a corporate hospitality stand, which is often given. But it seemed where the relief was putting him was very close to a tree. And according to him, the rules officials just, quote, didn't have the balls to make the decision. And so in the end, he ultimately felt the whole thing was taking too long and played from where his ball had landed. But it went on for quite a long time, to the point where Justin Thomas even, wasn't Justin Thomas's turn to play, but he played anyway because everyone was getting a bit frustrated. And like the US commentary team were almost blaming Lowry for putting off Justin Thomas. But Thomas said afterwards that it wasn't Lowry's fault, that the officials there maybe dilly-dallied a little bit, were maybe just a little bit afraid of the occasion. Sunday, back 9, we're not too sure where you can take a drop if the tree's in the way. Ultimately for Lowry, I mean, look, of course he wants to win a major. He's in a sticky enough spot in that, like, he's way down on the FedEx listings and needs to finish in the top 125 to keep his card, his US card for next year. Like, it's really important he does well. So he was like 170 something on the FedEx a couple of weeks ago. I just checked this morning. He's gone up to 137. So he's now really within touching distance of making that top 125. I'm not exactly sure how many events are left. There's a couple though, not too many. I need to double check that, but that's what this was about for him, was to get as many points as possible and try to keep his card for next year. But it's a good return to form. Like, geez, psychology is a funny thing. Puts his brother on the bag and maybe just starts feeling a bit better about things. Maybe the relationship with Dermot went a little bit stale. They were together a long time, and suddenly there you go. And actually, should mention Brooks Koepka's caddy is from Northern Ireland, Ricky Elliott. He's from kind of Portrush territory. So I'd say his bank balance is pretty good at the moment.
Oh yeah, he's going to have one of those JP moments where he goes and goes, oh, money has landed. But those 2 bogeys ended up costing Lowry a top 10 finish. 10 under would have been good enough for tied 6th, and he ended up finishing tied 12th. Just one final point about the Ryder Cup. If you're Thomas Bjorn at the moment, you're looking at John Rahm 4th, Thomas Pieters tied for 6th, Molinari tied for 6th, Rafa Cabrera Bello and Tyrrell Hatton in the top 10. And I don't know if Larry's in the mix or not, but at this point there's been a relatively decent surge in form from some of the Europeans. Yeah, there's a lot of good guys in form. Lowry's not really being discussed much at the moment. Now maybe a major USPGA performance like that puts you semi in the conversation, and what a lot of people always say is he'd have the right temperament for it, but they're sort of saying the US feel they may have the best team they've ever had in the history of the competition. And the European team are sort of feeling they may have the best team they've ever had in the history of the competition. So it's tough for Shane to get in. So it does look like, we could have something amazing in Paris. Like, in some respects, the more interesting question maybe is, will, what's his name? US captain, Jim Furyk. Will Furyk pick Woods and will he pick Mickelson? Because they need a pick. You kind of think he has to. You couldn't not pick them both. But because basically the Europeans have a few more weeks to play themselves into the team, whereas last night was the last time the US players could play themselves in. So Woods needs a pick. But I mean, look, how could you not give it to him? Even if nothing else, the TV executives will say, look, come on, this is just kind of a made-up thing anyway. You literally better pick Jim, we've got a 10-year contract here for you to do analysis. You show up once a year and it's all going to be fine. What do you think? Joe, great stuff. Thanks a million.
All right, lads. See you.
It's John Malloy. I'll be back with you at 7 o'clock this evening live on News Talk with Off the Ball.